Hello, Mike Ganade here from Rock Manor Games. I am here with our alpha prototype, if you will, of Lawyer Up. It is the version that our honorary producers received recently or will be receiving, and it is a very good representation of the stuff that we're working on as far as final production goes. The big difference between this and the final version is that when they sample, when the manufacturers sample the product this way, it's not offset printing. They use sort of a digital printing. So some of the quality of components and the quality of the printing is a little different when you actually set up for that huge print run. But as you can see, hopefully the light's picking it up. We've got really nice spot UV with Lawyer Up on the front. And hopefully, I'm trying to open it here. But I'll open it up and I can show you things. I have opened one of the other ones, and I do know that we have a few issues. So you'll see that like the rulebook says draft because the rulebook has been edited and changed since we sent this along for print. But again, it's all minor stuff. This is just sort of our process. It gets us ahead of the curve so we can look through this stuff before we send things for final print. So these are the case divider cards that you can organize in the box, if you will, in your box or in any other card carrying thing. We have our influence dials here. Sorry about that, had a little bit of an interruption. That's sort of how it goes when you're working from home all the time and everyone's around. So we have our influence dials here for the prosecution and defense. This is the way you can keep track of, the influence you're generating as you're playing cards into your examination pool, and then you can compare these to, when whoever has the higher influence. I mean, 53 is a little ridiculous, but never seen that. But whoever has the most influence, will spend that differential on the jury to sway them. So great little component here. Let's switch to some cards for a second. Now, I have opened another one of these because I had to check it out before I sent it on to reviewers and producers, and actually some retail stores are getting this copy so they can demo the game in store before it's released. So this is one of the mistakes they made, which is that they have way too many reference cards. They doubled them. So obviously you don't need two defense and prosecution reference cards. They're pretty much the same thing. They're just sort of skewed to give people reference on the differences of what's going on. So, you'd have a reference card for each side. These are the two solo cards. This basically tells you how you can have Automa or play against an AI opponent. And we recommend using the solo stuff for the case, the art forgery case or case 0. These are all repeats. Here's your judge. This box, the one thing we didn't have before we sent it to print or for sampling was the biased judge cards. So that's like the one piece of cards that won't be in this copy. For any producers out there getting it or anything, that was the one stretch goal piece that wasn't ready yet. So here are your base decks for the defense and prosecution. These are really important to learn because you'll be using these with every case of the game. They're pretty symmetrical as far as values go. And this is what you shuffle together with the evidence you draft of each case. So those are your base decks. We'll jump back over to components. We just talked about solo rules. We put some dice in here to use for solo play. But one of the things I'd like to note is that during prototyping, I always forget to use this. So I have a tendency to, let me grab a card here. I'll try to grab a real one. There's all these cards that legal arguments and moral arguments that get magnified based on the symbol you're playing in your examination. And during prototyping, we would always use dice to sort of represent what they're worth. Because we prefer, right? I don't know. I should say I prefer. I don't know what Sam prefers, but I prefer to tend to just sort of add up the numbers on the cards when they're in play. So we would use these dice to mark cards like this, since they come up infrequently enough that having a couple dice with us was could easily keep track of it. But you do have the nice influence dials now too, if you want to be like super official and keeping track of it. It is helpful when you're play testing and helping people. Now here is one of the, these look great. You can see here's our objection tokens with nice laser engraving on them. The mistake they made is that they engraved both sides. So in the final copy, you won't have that. So you can easily flip them over to show that they're exhausted. So, and here's the sidebar token when you're having a little chat with the judge and the judge flips. We've got sidebar tokens. Again, everything that was laser engraved was wrongly put on both sides. So you'll get some great wooden components here. But only one side will be laser engraved in the final edition. The bias tokens here are double-sided silkscreen printed, so that is correct. And I think that's where some of the confusion was with the other tokens, but we've already talked to them about it and worked it out. So these are all the nice bias tokens that you'll be putting on the jury cards. Nice and thick, nice and heavy, much better than the cardboard components we play tested with for the game for years and years. Sorry, I just knocked the camera a little bit. You'll be putting those bias tokens on these juror cards. Juror cards are double-sided. They have a lock on one side and no lock on the other. And you'll be playing on one side or the other, and with these cards or without these cards, depending on the case you're playing. So in the core box, the art forgery case has normal sort of jury, and the murder trial uses the locks to really bring in some true asymmetry between the sides. And the Godfather case uses the normal side, and then the witch trial doesn't use this at all. Instead, you have an angry mob. I don't have those cards to show for you yet. Those samples are still incoming. We didn't need to do those early because the expansions weren't part of the honorary producer pledge level. So that's something we're still finalizing. This is the murder case. I can tell because it has the other knife on it. The other knife is the counter to the bloody knife, which is the murder weapon. So here's all your evidence for this case. Here is our backstory cards. So this is something a lot of you guys asked about, which is just setting the mood of each case. So we have some nice sort of exposition. These are all your strategies, and then the strategies go right into all the witnesses that you have. 20-some witnesses in this case, if memory serves me correct. And then last but not least, we have the expanded art forgery case. I think all the basic cards are at the top here. This is sort of the standard stuff. And then let me show some of the, so these are the forgery cards. You can see they have like a paintbrush symbol. They're all up there. Then these are, I guess, Madam Web's cards. They have a spider web. You'll play with these extra evidence cards depending on which strategy you choose. Again, here's an extra judge. We don't need that in the final version. Here's all your witnesses for this case. This case is expanded to be 20 witnesses, I believe, or 14 maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 witnesses. It was originally 6, sort of as one as the tutorial case. So thank you to you backers for making this case much more robust. I want to show you guys what we did for the strategies here, because this is what sort of the last thing we figured out. So this is the case that we originally designed. It is the opening statements case, which is what we're calling it now. It's a short game with 6 witnesses, 2 neutral witnesses that you put in a witness deck as surprise witnesses. And this is the case you should play first to learn the game. Once you've learned this game, if you'd like to continue on playing the same case, we have a lot of variances to do. You can play with the forgery cards that you unlocked with the additional evidence, and it's a slightly longer game with more witnesses. You can play with a brand new defendant, Mademoiselle Arangni, playing the smuggling operations card or version of the case with a different set of witnesses. Again, this is around an hour. Or you can, and this uses the web evidence cards that you would add in. And then finally, we have a long game, which would take probably over an hour because it has so many witnesses. You could play with these 10 witnesses and try to solve the spider's web, which takes all the evidence cards from this case, all 54 evidence cards as a draft. I still think that this would be shorter than the murder case, which has 60 cards in the evidence deck, but this is a great case to sort of play at varying lengths of time depending on how much time you have. You can play sort of different strategies. Again, this, unlike the murder case, which has a strategy for each side that you're picking at the same time, this is sort of a get together with your friends, what type of game are we playing, and you pick one of these strategies, and it sets both things up. So that is the unboxing of the core set, or of the prototype of the core set. I would like to note for everyone out there that likes to sleeve their games, this insert is made of cardboard, and the box is sized so that decks of cards can fit side by side in the box. So if you're sleeving your game, I mean, obviously sleeving your cards makes them a lot thicker, but you can see that there's plenty of room in here. So the idea is that if you were a sleever, if you want to organize your cards in a search in this particular way, if you like this, you can eventually fill your core box up with all the different cases and expansions this way, and organize it side to side. Again, plenty of room in this box, and in the expansion boxes are almost as big as this box. It's just a square, so there's plenty of room in these boxes for sleeving cards and keeping things separate. So I hope you guys found that interesting and exciting. We're certainly excited to get this game out to you. Thanks so much for your support and backing us. And until next time, get ready to lawyer up.